Hello everyone, and welcome to today's log. My name is Researcher Fries, and for today's document, we will be reading through SCP-5644 with a Containment Class of Esoteric, Secondary Class of Archon, Disruption Class ekhi, and a Risk Class of Danger. And as for its Special Containment Procedures, SCP-5644's movement along the Nile River is to be tracked by MTF Lambda-9, Osiris's hand, with any significant deviation from SCP-5644's normal pathing to be reported to Site-95 Director William Orville. In the event that SCP-5644 becomes hostile, civilian evacuation of the region is to be carried out in coordination with the Egyptian, Sudanese, South Sudanese, Ethiopian, and Ugandan governments. News outlets would be led to believe that evacuation was caused by significant flooding of the Nile River and its drainage basin. Any attempt to remove or neutralize SCP-5644, regardless of operational success, may result in catastrophic consequences for the region. Any and all reports of SCP-5644 by civilian witnesses to news outlets will be discredited. All civilians and reporters involved with said sightings are to be given Class A amnestics. And now for its description. SCP-5644 is a sapient male Nile crocodile. It measures 9.15 meters and weighs approximately 4,250 kilograms. Despite its immense size, sightings of SCP-5644 by the public are minimal and are only reported from small villages. SCP-5644 Age is unknown, but it is believed to be at least 200,000 years old. SCP-5644's primary anomaly is its control over the climate of the Nile River and its tributaries. Its control ranges from bringing in dry seasons and floods to changing the river's course and expanding its drainage basin. SCP-5644 refers to itself as the protector and guide of the Nile. SCP-5644 claims to have interacted with its inhabitants from the region from the early dynastic period of Egypt until the Middle Ages. The Foundation became aware of SCP-5644's existence when the United Kingdom began to construct dams across the Nile in the early 1900s. SCP-5644 would actively hamper, damage, or destroy these dams. After years of ineffective attempts at capturing SCP-5644, the British government handed responsibility to the Foundation. All containment attempts were abandoned after 1956, when SCP-5644 was removed from the Nile River, which resulted in the flooding of the local area and all nearby plant life to decay. The area where this happened has been sanctioned off from the public and is now where Site-95 resides. Now for Addendum 1, the interviews. After the events of 1956, SCP-5644 avoided all attempts at contact by Foundation personnel. In order to monitor the location of SCP-5644, several observation posts were constructed along the Nile River and its tributaries. Researcher Hensworth, who headed the SCP-5644 project, then proposed a living food fort in areas it frequented to gain its trust and cooperation. Site Director Orville approved the proposition, provided Hensworth himself placed the food with two members of Mobile Task Force Lambda-9, Osiris's hand. Hensworth approached the riverbed with carcasses of animals from the region every day. Initially, all attempts failed as SCP-5644 would not approach the food until researcher Hensworth left the area. Hensworth insisted that the guards leave so that SCP-5644 would approach. After several attempts, SCP-5644 allowed Hensworth to approach closer. Starting on May 27, 1997, SCP-5644 would allow Hensworth to stay next to the food as it fed. These are the following interviews. Interview number 1. Interviewed, SCP-5644. Interviewer, Researcher Hensworth. Forward, Researcher Hensworth left the deceased African buffalo on the riverbed SCP-5644 frequents. After 15 minutes, SCP-5644 appeared out of the river and began consuming the carcass. Hensworth had a hidden recorder on his person in the event that SCP-5644 could communicate. Begin log. The sounds of bones cracking and flesh ripping are heard in the background. Can you understand me? SCP-5644 bellows and turns towards Hensworth. Oh shit! Calm down, human. I won't feast upon you. I do not hunt your kind anyway. You can talk. I mean, why did you let me get closer to you? Why indeed. SCP-5644 turns back towards the carcass and continues to eat. Do you mind explaining your control over the Nile? SCP-5644 stops eating and turns towards Hensworth. It is but an extension of myself. I control the river's flow, and in return, it gives me life. So you would say that your containment would detriment you the region. Is that what your leader is trying to do to me? To contain me? Well, yeah. It's sort of our deal. We contain anomalies and research them for the safety of mankind. And by attempting to reach this goal, how many have died in the name of safety? We've crossed some lines, yes. But you must understand that we only have our best interests in mind. Those interests only further the goals of your superiors. If you were to contain me, this river and all that it flows into would dry up. But if people were to see you... Have they thus far? Well, no, but that's because we suppressed our reports. Then there is nothing more to discuss nor worry about. There is a minute of silence recorded as SCP-5644 continued to feed upon the carcass. In the background. Hey Doc, you feeling alright? That is our time. Tell me, what is your name? My name? It's, Hensworth. I hope to speak to you again, Hensworth. End log. Closing statement. Before Lambda-9 Beta could arrive, SCP-5644 dragged the carcass into the river and disappeared. For the next few days, no contact could be established with SCP-5644, and researcher Hensworth suggested that its guards not be within visual range of the riverbank. A compromise was reached where every 30 minutes, they would do a check-in before returning to the vehicle just outside visual range. Interview number 2. Interviewed. SCP-5644. Interviewer, Researcher Hensworth. Forward. Contact was successfully established after the second attempt of the new procedure. This interview occurred shortly after the third check-in by Researcher Hensworth's armed guards. He activated transmission shortly after contact with SCP-5644 to let his guards know he had done so. This time Hensworth brought a hidden camera to his person to record this interview. Begin log. Sounds of the camera being activated can be heard before it is turned on. So, you finally showed up. My apologies, but I would rather communicate in private. Well, we're not entirely alone, Hensworth gestures behind them but over the riverbank. I had a feeling that was the case. Your people appear to be very untrustworthy. They are, but so are you. But that begs the question, why do you trust me? You must understand, Hensworth. I do not trust you, not yet anyway. But I see myself as a decent judge of character, and you don't seem to be a bad person. Then why did you come back? You remind me of someone I used to know. What were they like, if you don't mind me asking? It is a long story. You can't just give me that, just the details will suffice. He was a Roman boy. Much like yourself, he would come to the riverside and feed me, although it was lesser portions than what you gave me. Whoa, wait. Roman? How old are you exactly? Old enough to have seen this region turn from green to sand numerous times. Older than your entire species. Now, will you let me continue? Yes, I'm sorry, please continue with your tale. This boy and his family were farmers. They were pressured by local soldiers to give a significant portion of their crops and meat to them. I asked if he would like my assistance, but he declined. He was a stubborn yet compassionate young boy. What happened to him? I was waiting for the boy when I saw the smoke. By the time I arrived, the farm was nearly burned down. I desperately looked for the boy and his family. It was too late. He was huddling the livestock and covered in gashes, bruises, and burns. He was barely conscious. I tried to save him, but he gently touched my jaw and smiled. I'm so sorry. Don't be. This happened well over 1,000 years ago. I'm sure that even with the miracles your people can perform, nothing could save him. But it still hurts, you know. I know how you feel. When you work a job like this, you need to get used to not seeing your friends the next day. And it's always the people you care about too. Grief is shared among all beings. I'm sorry for your losses. I know SCP-5644, I think that SCP-5644? What is that? Oh, that's what me and my superiors call you. Consider it a tag. Well, between us, you can call me by the name given to me by your kind some few thousand years ago. And what would that be? Oh, my apologies. Long ago, they called me Sobek. What? Like the deity? I suppose, although I've never considered myself one. Hensworth guards can be heard calling for him in the background. Damn it, has it been an hour already? It would appear that we've been interrupted again. I did enjoy our chat. You don't need to leave. I can convince him to leave us alone. I have matters to attend to anyhow. But what about the food? Leave it for the others, but you'll no longer need it to converse with me. Take care, Hensworth. End log. Closing statement. After this interview, researcher Hensworth requested that the armed guards do not come to him unless he calls for them. Given SCP-5644's behavior towards Hensworth, this request was granted. Researcher Hensworth and SCP-5644 would meet frequently for the remainder of 1997. The frequency of these meetings, as well as the growing relationship between Hensworth and SCP-5644, prompted an internal investigation into researcher Hensworth's conduct. The investigation concluded on February 5, 1998, and found that Hensworth was fraternizing with an anomalous entity and was subsequently reprimanded. Hensworth was removed from his position but was allowed to continue to interview SCP-5644 once a month under close supervision. Subsequent interviews offered significantly more insight into SCP-5644. Finally, Addendum 2, Incident 5644. On August 13th, 20, Lake Kyoga's waterline significantly diminished, extending the shoreline by nearly a kilometer. This caused significant flooding across much of the Nile River and its tributaries. Determining SCP-5644 to be the cause, MTF Lambda-9, Osiris's Hand, and MTF Epsilon 6 Village Idiots were deployed to the affected areas. Disguised as UN peacekeepers and members of the Red Cross, both task forces evacuated civilians in the area. MTF Lambda-9 scanned the area of Lake Kyoga in search of SCP-5644. On August 15, 20, a small team accompanied by senior researcher Hensworth located SCP-5644 on a shoreline near Bakungi. The following was recorded on L9 Alpha 1's helmet-mounted camera. Encounter 5644-20-3. Begin log. Sounds of the audio capture being turned on can be heard. Image capture shows SCP-5644 laying on the riverbank, showing moderate injuries, resting. Senior researcher Hensworth can be seen running towards SCP-5644. Hensworth, calm yourself. It could be hostile. Can it? It could be worse than it looks. Sir, even if that were the case, we need to report this command. Even so, he needs treatment now. L9 Alpha 1 looks around to his other squad mates. After some hesitation, he points towards Alpha 3 and Alpha 5. 3, call in for medical. 5, come with me to help this thing. Alpha 1 and Alpha 5 run towards Hensworth and SCP-5644 and begin to apply medical aid. Hensworth can be seen near SCP-5644's head, comforting it. You'll be alright, you'll be given good care. Then what? They'll contain me like the rest? They couldn't even if they wanted. It's way less of a risk for them to let you be. There is silence for the next few seconds as Alpha 1 and Alpha 5 continue medical aid. What happened here? She was attempting to abuse the river. I had to put it to an end. Whoever it was, we could have helped you. I appreciate your concern, but the responsibility is mine and mine alone. This is exactly what I was worried about. What if you need to be in two places at once? You've already admitted that times are changing. Just say the word. SCP-5644 bellows, startling Alpha 1 and Alpha 5. I will consider. Return to the normal shoreline. The lake will fill in soon. Alpha 1 then looks over SCP-5644's back and notices the waterline beginning to slowly rise and turns towards Hensworth. Sir, we need to leave. By the time medical comes, we'll be underwater. He needs treatment. He will be fine, my friend. This isn't my first encounter with her, and it won't be the last. Now go. Alpha 1 and Alpha 5 finish the medical treatment and begin to pull away Hensworth as the water approaches their feet. Hensworth initially resists, but is eventually considered by Alpha 5. Alpha 1 orders the team to return to the vehicle. Alpha 1 turns back as they approach the vehicle and watch the water rise above SCP-5644 and quicken its rise. Alpha 1 enters the vehicle and drives away from the waterline. The audio and visual feed is cut off moments later by Alpha 1. And now for the report on Incident 5644. For more intelligence, Incident XXXX began as an unknown entity described as having a head of a crocodile and the body of a lion in the hippopotamus, attempted to alter the entirety of Lake Kagura area. SCP-5644 noticed this change due to its anomalous properties and headed towards the area. The subsequent drainage of Lake Kagura was seemingly an attempt by SCP-5644 to stall and subvert the entity's progress. The flooding of other areas is seen as a side effect of this action. Eyewitness reports indicated SCP-5644 and an unknown entity had been locked in combat for a few hours before Foundation personnel arrived. By the time Foundation forces arrived and secured the area, the unknown entity was not seen nor encountered. Class A and Class B amnestics were administered to the local population, and news outlets were led to believe the drainage and flooding were natural events. The actions of Senior Researcher Hensworth and L9 Alpha were under review by the Ethics Committee. Yesterday, they announced their actions by giving medical aid to an anomalous entity were justified given the circumstances. Currently, SCP-5644 movements have returned to normal, but a second site may be needed in order to cover the vast range of SCP-5644's influence. In conclusion, if it were not for SCP-5644's actions, the Foundation would have been faced with a broken veil scenario, given its apparent nature, as well as the interaction with one of our senior staff. SCP-5644 appears to be benevolent and non-hostile, so long as no harm is done to Senior Researcher Hensworth and contact between the two stays steady, we should not have to fear SCP-5644 turning hostile to the Foundation. Site 95, Director William Orville. And now for the final addendum. Addendum.3, Hensworth's Journal. The following addendum contains an entry from Hensworth's journal that documents a previously unknown encounter that he had with SCP-5644. This entry is believed to be written prior to Incident 5644. Journal entry number 52. Today I met with Sobek. It had been a while since I had seen him. We hadn't had a chance to see each other as often as we used to since O5 struck the noses in. It was in the middle of the night when I found Sobek again. It was not that hard to spot him, but damn does he look intimidating. When I approached him, he turned his head toward me, and at first he didn't recognize me. Once I made him aware of my identity, he seemed to relax a little and gestured me to move closer. After I sat near him, it was silent for a while. I finally broke when I asked him, what was it like being treated like a god? A silly question for sure, but my curiosity had piqued its interest. He simply laughed and said that he never experienced it personally. His actions throughout the river were what caused him to be worshipped. Not so much because he thought it. I then asked him, why do you call yourself Sobek? He stated that it was the name they gave him, and he never had a name to address himself as before. Sobek said that since so many people were praying to him, the least he could do was accept the name. I wondered if the other Egyptian gods were real, to which he responded that he wasn't sure. He acknowledged the possibility of them existing, but he stated that he never met them. For a while, we just stared at the moon. We talked about many things. We talked about politics, history, biology, and even sports. We enlightened each other on so many things. After witnessing Sobek's wiseness and intelligence, a part of me began to think he really was a god. And then he told me of his concerns. With the world evolving, the number of threats was increasing. If there were two crises at once, he would have to leave one to suffer for longer than the other. I told him that the Foundation could help. We have plenty of assets not being used right now. He thanked me for my generosity, but he said that the river was his responsibility alone. I said that if he kept thinking like that, he would get lonely. Sobek stated that he already felt alone. After he met humanity after guiding us out of Africa, he felt like he could change. But after that boy died, he realized that he could outlive anyone he made friends with. His own kind feared him, even those that prayed to him every day held a degree of fear. Instead, he said, he would protect the region and guarantee the lives of future generations. I then asked him if we were friends. He lay there silently before answering we could be, but only if I recognized that we couldn't be for long. I said it didn't matter, and if anything I wanted to be friends. I've never seen an SCP, let alone a giant crocodile, cry before. I didn't know how to hug something that big, but I think I did a pretty good job. We sat there a while longer before he suddenly turned his head downriver and began to hiss. I asked what was wrong, and he said something is troubling the source. Before he left, he said his goodbyes and said we would meet soon. As he disappeared beneath the surface of the water, I began to worry that we wouldn't reunite, and if we did, it wouldn't be a happy reunion. And that is the end of SCP-5644, a weird crocodile that had the seemingly powers of Sobek, but yet fought Sobek, so isn't Sobek. Whatever it really is. Thank you for listening to today's log, and I hope to see you in the next one.